He thought the storm had already taken everything. But when the former Navy SEAL stepped under the frozen bridge, a German shepherd blocked his path, guarding an unconscious old woman, and in the snow behind him, fresh footprints were forming, circling closer, as if whoever owned the night was already there to claim them back. The storm had teeth that night. Snow drove low across the mountain road in hard silver sheets, hissing over the hood of Ronan Vale's truck and erasing the edges of the world one fence post at a time. Visibility was poor, but not impossible, and Ronan preferred it that way. Bad weather made patterns stand out. At 38, the former Navy SEAL no longer wore a uniform, but nothing in him had learned how to stop scanning. His eyes moved in disciplined sweeps: road, shoulder, tree line, ditch, mirror, sky glow, back to road. Hands loose on the wheel, breathing steady. Speed controlled. The bridge ahead appeared as a darker wound in the storm, a slab of concrete cutting across the narrow ravine like something old and indifferent. Then came the sound. One bark, sharp, deep, close. Not random. Not frightened. A warning. Ronan eased off the accelerator immediately. Another bark tore through the wind, this time lower, angrier, carrying under the bridge. He did not slam the brakes. He never did anything dramatic if control would do. He guided the truck onto the shoulder, tires crunching over packed snow, engine still running. For half a second he listened. Wind, ice grains against metal, the low ticking of the heater, then movement, fast, dark, and low at the edge of his headlights. A dog crossed the beam and vanished beneath the bridge. Ronan was out of the truck before the wipers completed another sweep. Cold struck hard, clean, straight through the layers of wool and canvas. He pulled the door shut with care instead of force and stood still, letting his eyes adapt to the ugly gray-white churn. There, tracks. A large dog, recent, sharp-edged. Human drag marks, too. Something had been pulled or someone had fallen and been moved. The snow around the bridge embankment was disturbed in arcs and gouges not softened yet by the storm. Fresh. Ronan's jaw tightened. Something is wrong. He reached into the truck, took the flashlight from the console, and kept it low rather than shining it everywhere like a man begging to be noticed. The beam cut under the bridge in a narrow ribbon. Concrete pillars, drifts, rusted rebar shadows. Then eyes flashed back at him, amber, steady, unblinking. A German shepherd stood 10 feet away, body broad and tense, black and tan coat caked with snow, ears forward, chest heaving. It was not feral, not lost. It planted itself sideways across the narrow path under the bridge as if blocking access to something behind it. Ronan lowered his center of gravity a fraction. "Easy," he said, voice flat, controlled. The dog did not bark this time. It watched him with the cold concentration of an animal making a decision. Then it stepped once to the side, not retreating, making room. Ronan moved forward slowly, beam shifting past the dog's shoulder and found the shape behind it. A woman lay slumped against the concrete support, half buried by wind-driven snow, one thin arm curled over her ribs as if she had frozen in the act of protecting herself. She was old, late 70s, maybe more, small-framed, wrapped in a torn wool coat gone stiff with ice, gray hair plastered to her temples beneath a soaked knit hat. Her face was the color of candle wax. For one violent instant, she looked dead. Ronan was already kneeling, fingers to neck. There, a pulse, faint and slow, a fragile tapping deep under cold skin. Alive, but sliding. He swept the flashlight once over her body. No obvious blood. Hands cracked, lips blue, boots split at the seams. Hypothermia, severe. He glanced at the dog. The shepherd had moved close again, not growling, just staring at the woman and then at Ronan, as if demanding an answer he did not yet have. "She's alive," he muttered, more for himself than the animal. The dog's ears twitched. Ronan shrugged off one glove and touched the woman's cheek. Ice cold, bad. He checked her airway, brushed snow from her mouth, adjusted the scarf half strangling her throat. Her eyelids fluttered but did not open. "Ma'am," he said, "can you hear me?" Nothing. He scanned the area again, quick and surgical. Under the bridge were a plastic sack, a bent shopping cart wheel, 2 crushed cans frozen into slush, and a blanket too thin to matter buried under drifted snow. No camp, no proper shelter, no fire, no reason a woman her age should have survived even this long. The dog paced once, nails ticking on concrete, then returned to her side. Ronan noticed the collar. Leather, worn, no tags. A fresh scrape marred the dog's shoulder. Another along the flank. Recent struggle, not street damage. Not random. The river below the ravine moved black and mean beneath a crust of ice, and above them the storm thickened again. He checked his watch. 10 minutes to the service road cutoff before the county plow shut that stretch completely. If he lost the road, he lost speed. If he lost speed, he lost warmth. If he lost warmth, the woman died. Decision made. Ronan slid one arm behind her back and another beneath her knees. She weighed almost nothing. Too light. Like lifting a stack of dry sticks wrapped in wet cloth. The moment he moved her, the German shepherd stepped in tight, body rigid, a rumble building low in its chest. Ronan stopped but did not give ground. "You want her alive. You let me move," he said, eyes never leaving the dog. Wind drove snow through the open space under the bridge, dusting all 3 of them in white. The dog stared at him one breath longer, then shifted out of the way again, but only barely, like a sentry granting passage while keeping the right to kill if disappointed. Ronan rose with the woman in his arms and turned toward the truck. The dog stayed glued to his left side. Halfway up the embankment, Ronan's boot struck something buried shallow in the snow. He looked down without stopping. A phone, cracked screen, dead black, half ground into the slush. He marked the spot in his head and kept moving. Priorities first. The truck felt absurdly warm after the bridge. He opened the passenger door, laid the woman across the seat as flat as he could, then yanked the emergency blanket from the back compartment and wrapped her fast, torso first, then legs, then another wool blanket over the top. No direct blast heat yet. Slow warming. Controlled. He angled the vents low. The German shepherd jumped in without permission and positioned itself with its front paws on the edge of the seat, nose near the woman's shoulder, watching every move Ronan made. "Fine," Ronan Howard said, circling to the driver's side. "Stay useful." As he climbed in, something caught his eye in the side mirror. Tracks. Not the dog's, not his. Human boot prints, emerging from the swirl beyond the bridge approach where there had been only blank snow a minute earlier. One set. Then a second, slightly offset. Too measured to belong to panicked hikers. Too direct to be coincidence. The skin between Ronan's shoulders tightened. He killed the dome light at once and went still. The heater hummed. The old woman made a faint broken sound in her throat. The dog's head snapped up, not toward the woman, not toward Ronan, but toward the darkness behind the truck. Ronan did not turn immediately. He let the mirror give him shape before motion. 2 shadows, barely there, then gone behind the blowing white near the bridge pillar. Watching. His hand moved to the gear shift. The dog's lips peeled back in silence. Then the old woman's fingers twitched under the blanket and caught Ronan's sleeve with surprising strength. Her eyes opened just enough to show a slice of clouded blue, and one word scraped out of her, dry as torn paper. "Don't." Ronan leaned closer. "Don't what?" Her gaze dragged weakly toward the rear window. "Lights," she whispered. The shepherd turned and growled, not at Ronan, not at the woman, but at something coming up fast through the storm behind them. Ronan killed the headlights before the storm could reflect them back like a beacon. Darkness slammed into the cab at once, thick and intimate, broken only by the pale wash of snow and the green instrument glow across his hands. Behind him, something moved again near the bridge support, too steady to be wind, too deliberate to be chance. The German shepherd's growl deepened until it vibrated through the seat frame. The old woman's hand still clung weakly to Ronan's sleeve, her fingers cold and bird-light, but the urgency in that one whispered word had more force than panic. "Don't. Don't use the lights. Don't let them see." He shifted the truck into gear without another question. Tires bit, slipped, then caught. He rolled forward in darkness, slow enough to stay alive, fast enough not to be pinned in place. The bridge fell behind in the mirror as a darker shadow inside the storm. Ronan counted 3 breaths, then risked one glance back. No headlights followed. That was worse. Men who hunted in a blizzard without lights either knew the ground or had done this before. The old woman sagged sideways against the blankets. Ronan put one hand briefly against her shoulder to steady her and kept the other on the wheel. "Stay awake," he said. "Can you do that?" Her lips moved without sound. The dog stood braced with all 4 paws now, one near the dashboard, one on the seat edge, head angled toward the rear window, ears rigid. Ronan took the service road cut off hard and narrow, using memory more than sight. The county would shut the gate within minutes. If he made it through first, he bought distance. If he didn't, he trapped himself on the wrong side of the ridge with a hypothermic woman and whatever was following them. Wind slammed the truck broadside as he climbed. Pine trunks flickered in and out of view like black bars. Snow blew across the road in clean horizontal sheets that erased ruts almost as soon as the tires made them. Then the dog snapped its head to the passenger side window and barked once, explosive, violent. Ronan turned instinctively. A figure stood 10 yards off the road between the trees. No flashlight, no reflective gear, just a dark human shape, still as a fence post, half covered in snow, watching the truck pass. Ronan did not brake. He kept moving, pulse steady but harder now, mind narrowing into clean compartments. One observer by the bridge, one on the road. Organized, layered. They were not searching at random, they were setting positions. The gate appeared ahead through the storm, half buried, the amber warning light above it struggling against the snow. Still open, barely. Ronan drove through as the mechanical arm began to descend, missing the hood by inches, and only after it clanged shut in the rearview mirror did he allow himself one measured breath. The dog did not relax, neither did the old woman. Her eyes opened again, wider this time, pale and washed with fever and cold. "They use the old roads," she whispered. "Not roads," Ronan said. "Who?" She swallowed with visible effort. "Handlers." The word dropped into the cab like a stone into black water. Ronan Husson kept his voice flat. "Dog handlers?" "Hunters," she said, "for what they paid to keep." Her head rolled weakly toward the shepherd, and the dog, for the first time, looked directly back at her. Not fear, recognition. Ronan filed it away. Nothing about tonight was accidental. The phone in the snow, the dog's injuries, the woman beneath the bridge, the men without lights. Pieces, not debris. He reached the cabin road just as the storm thickened again. The climb to his place was steep, unplowed, and lined by ravines that did not forgive mistakes. He took it in low gear. Branches scraped along the truck like fingernails. Twice the tires slid toward the ditch before correcting. The old woman began to shiver harder, violent tremors now. Good and bad. Bad because she was still on the edge. Good because dead calm cold had not taken her all the way yet. "Name," Ronan said. "Tell me your name." It was not comfort. It was assessment. Keep the patient talking. Keep the mind from shutting off. She took too long to answer. "Evelyn." "Last name?" Her gaze slid to the dog again. "Cross." Ronan nodded once. "You know this dog?" A pause. She found me first. Not an answer. Not enough time to force more. The cabin emerged from the storm in a dim square of shadow and timber. Ronan rolled the truck straight to the porch instead of parking clean, angling for a fast departure if he needed one. Engine running, door unlocked, eyes scanning, no fresh tracks near the steps, no broken branches close to the windows, no sign of entry. He moved fast. He hauled Evelyn out first, blankets and all, and carried her through the front door into the heat of the wood stove room. The German Shepherd leaped down and circled once, checking corners before returning to Evelyn's side. Ronan noticed that too. Working behavior. Trained, or something near it. He laid Evelyn on the rug near the stove, stripped off the wet outer blanket, replaced it with dry wool, and set water to heat. No alcohol, no sudden heat, no dumb mistakes. Her boots came off with difficulty. Frost rhymed her socks. He wrapped her feet, checked her pupils, checked her breathing again. Better, but thin. The dog paced to the door and back, to the window and back, then stood facing the entrance with a stillness that looked almost human in its intention. "You can stop doing that any time," Ronan muttered. It did not move. He crossed to the mudroom shelf, opened the locked metal case, and took out the pistol he kept more from habit than expectation. Magazine in. Chamber checked. Safety where it belonged. He did not wear it on his hip. He set it on the table within reach and looked out through a sliver in the curtain. Snow. Pines, nothing. Then he saw the road. His own tire tracks should have begun softening by now. Instead, fresh impressions cut across them. Boot prints. Deep heel, deliberate stride, no stumbling. Whoever had followed the truck had not come all the way to the porch. They had stopped short in the trees where the line of sight favored them, and the house lights betrayed him. Ronan went still. The dog came to stand beside him without command. Same line of sight, same attention. "How many?" he asked the darkness, though the question was really for himself. He opened the front door a fraction and let the cold in. The storm hissed against the threshold. He crouched, studying the nearest visible marks. 2 sets for sure. One heavier, one lighter. Spacing disciplined. They had paused together, then separated. One angling left toward the woodshed, the other staying on the road shoulder. Reconnaissance. Testing approaches. Not drifters. Not desperate men. Professionals were rare out here, but experience had a smell, and this had it. Behind him, Evelyn made a strained sound. "They'll wait," she said. Ronan closed the door and turned. "For daylight?" She shook her head weakly. "For mistake." He handed her warm water in controlled sips. "Then I won't give them one." She almost smiled, but it broke halfway. "They don't need many." The side wall creaked as something brushed against it outside. Ronan moved instantly, crossing low to the window by the kitchen sink. Nothing visible. Then a soft, metallic tap came from the back of the house. Once, twice, then silence. Not random wind. Someone had touched the propane tank cage, maybe by accident, maybe to measure distance in the dark. Ronan reached for the radio handset mounted near the shelf, clicked it on, and got only static. Storm interference or distance. Useless either way. He considered the truck, too exposed now. He considered staying put. Better cover, but fixed position. He considered the cellar hatch beneath the pantry boards. a space built for storms and never once used for people. Options, angles, seconds. The dog suddenly broke from the window and ran to the back door, barking hard now. Not warning, but challenge. Ronan was moving before the third bark. He killed the main lamp, plunging the room into a dim orange glow from the stove, then pulled Evelyn halfway upright. "Can you stand?" She tried and failed. "Then you crawl if you have to." He dragged the pantry rug aside, dropped to one knee, and hooked his fingers into the narrow iron ring set between the floorboards. The hatch lifted with a dull wooden groan. Cold air exhaled from the dark below. Storage shelves, canned goods. Enough room, barely. He turned back toward Evelyn. "Down there, now." She looked toward the dog instead. "She won't leave you." "I didn't ask her to." Another sound came from outside, closer this time. A slow crunch of boots on packed snow right outside the back wall. Then, calm as a man making a business call, a voice spoke through the storm from just beyond the door. "You took something that doesn't belong to you." The dog lunged at the wood so hard the frame shuddered. Ronan grabbed the pistol from the table with one hand and hauled Evelyn toward the open hatch with the other as the doorknob began to turn. The knob turned once, stopped, then turned harder. Ronan dropped to one knee, shoved Evelyn toward the open hatch, and pointed into the dark below. "Go." She looked barely conscious, but fear gave her one last reserve of strength. She slid feet first into the cellar, clutching the blanket around her shoulders as if it were the last wall between her and the cold. The German shepherd did not follow. She remained planted in front of the back door, body angled, lips peeled back, every muscle drawn tight enough to hum. The voice outside came again, calm and almost polite. "Open the door, and nobody gets hurt." Ronan lowered the hatch but did not close it fully. Not yet. He crossed left of the door frame, pistol up, keeping his silhouette off the center line. Snow hissed against the siding. Then 3 soft taps landed on the wood, deliberate, knuckle light, a mockery of courtesy. "You have one old woman," the man said. "You don't want this to become worse." Ronan answered by killing the last lamp. Darkness folded over the room except for the low red pulse from the stove. The dog's ears twitched. Outside, the porch boards creaked once under shifting weight. Then the sound moved away. Not retreat. Reposition. Ronan counted silently. 4 seconds, 7, 10. A shadow swept past the side window too low and too fast for a man walking upright. Someone crouching beneath the glass line. Another moved at the front of the house, boots deliberate in the drift. They were probing, testing windows, doors, response time, not rushing. He eased the hatch open again and crouched over it. "Evelyn," a faint voice rose from the dark. "I'm here. Can you move on your own?" "A little." "Good, stay low. If I say run, you go through the storm hatch and keep going downhill." She let out a thin laugh that broke halfway. "That's not much of a plan. It's the only one that moves." The German shepherd broke from the back door and sprinted to the front room. Ronan had followed 2 steps behind. She stopped beneath the window overlooking the road, not barking now, just staring with a stillness more alarming than noise. Ronan lifted the curtain edge with 2 fingers. Nothing at first but white darkness and the faint ghost of his truck near the porch. Then he saw the road again. More tracks had appeared since minutes ago, not blurred by the storm, not softened at all. Fresh. 3 separate sets now. One approached the truck. One had circled wide toward the shed. One remained near the tree line where the road bent, holding distance like overwatch. The first figure reached the truck and crouched near the front tire. Sabotage or search. Either way, bad. Ronan made the decision in one breath. The truck was no longer an escape vehicle. It was bait. He stepped back from the window and spoke quietly to the dog as if she were another operator in the room. "No noise unless you see them commit." The shepherd did not look at him, but she remained silent. Ronan went to the hall closet, pulled out the small battery lantern, turned it to its dimmest red setting, and dropped it into the cellar. "Keep that low," he told Evelyn. "Do not come up unless I open it." Then he finally shut the hatch and slid the pantry rug back over the seam. The dog turned at once toward the kitchen. A second later, the sound came. A soft, metallic click at the side window latch. Ronan moved on instinct, crossing the room in 3 controlled steps and flattening beside the cabinets just as the window eased up a fraction. Cold air pushed through the gap. A gloved hand appeared, reaching inward with careful confidence, probing for the lock bar. Ronan brought the pistol up, not firing. Not yet. Instead, he slammed the butt of the weapon against the wrist. Bone cracked, or the glove just hit it well. But the hand vanished instantly and a muffled curse came from outside. The dog exploded into barking then, a blast of fury that filled the cabin. Snow sprayed past the glass as the figure outside stumbled back. Ronan used the second it bought him to drag the kitchen table on its side and jam it under the window line. Then came impact at the front of the house, one shoulder check against the porch door, hard enough to shake dust from the frame. A second hit followed faster. Not a breach attempt yet, pressure. "You're making this complicated," the same calm voice called from outside. "You don't know what she took." Ronan kept low, moving between windows, recalculating. They wanted something enough to hunt in a blizzard, but they were still talking. That meant fear of noise, fear of witnesses, or fear of damaging the asset. His eyes went to the dog. Asset. That word again, though no one had said it aloud in this room. The shepherd paced once toward the cellar hatch, then back to the front door, then to Evelyn's abandoned boots by the stove. She nudged them, whining low in her throat, then returned to the door. She was not anxious, she was counting time, waiting for something. Ronan saw it all at once and hated it immediately. "They're not here just for Evelyn," he muttered. The dog's ears flicked, but she did not turn. A scraping sound began along the outside wall, moving from the front porch towards the rear corner. Something dragged through snow, heavy and narrow. Ronan risked another look through the slit beside the curtain. A man in a dark parka was hauling a length of chain from the truck bed. Not a tool for a door, for towing, for pulling something out. The shed, the truck, no, the angle was wrong. He followed the line and saw the second man kneeling by the porch steps, clearing snow from the metal ring anchored at the base of the house, the storm tie-down point used for securing deliveries in heavy wind. They meant to hook the chain to the porch support and rip the whole front landing apart with the truck. Quick, loud, brutal, but effective. A house could survive winter. A door frame torn open in sub-zero air could not. Damn it. He moved fast now. He got to the mudroom, yanked his own emergency line from the peg, clipped it to the interior banister and looped the other end around the stove brace. Not enough to save the porch if they ripped it, but enough to keep the interior door from flying wide. The dog remained at his heel for exactly 2 seconds, then bolted to the back room again. Ronan followed and saw why. Beyond the rear window, half hidden by blowing snow, a fourth figure was approaching from the ravine side, smaller than the others, moving with the careful pace of someone who knew there was another exit. He had underestimated the perimeter. They had not just found the cabin, they had mapped it. The figure in back stopped near the storm hatch bulkhead outside, crouched, and brushed snow from the iron handle. Direct access to the cellar. Direct access to Evelyn. Ronan was already moving before his thoughts finished aligning. He dropped to the floor, jerked the pantry rug back, hauled the hatch up, and pointed downward. "Evelyn, now, storm hatch, move." Her face rose in the dim red light below, pale and scared but alert enough to understand. They know? They know enough. The dog pushed past him and leaped into the cellar before he could stop her, claws hitting wood, body disappearing into the dark with a speed that made Evelyn gasp. A heartbeat later, Ronan heard a different sound from beneath the floorboards. A snarl, close and vicious, then a man's shout outside at the bulkhead, followed by scrambling boots on ice. Good. The dog had bought seconds. He slammed the hatch half closed again and ran for the front room just as the truck engine roared to life outside. Headlights flared through the curtains, bleaching the cabin interior white. So they were done hiding now. The chain snapped taut with a metallic shriek. The whole porch lurched. Nails screamed through old timber. Stove ash jumped in the firebox. Ronan braced one hand against the wall, pistol in the other as the house shuddered around him. A second pull like that would rip the entry open. A third would bring part of the front wall with it. Then, from below the floor, the German shepherd barked once, sharp, urgent, commanding, and Evelyn screamed his name from the cellar as something heavy began pounding on the outside storm hatch. The second pull nearly tore the porch free. The front wall groaned, the stovepipe rattled, and snow burst through the door seams in thin white lines. Ronan did not wait for the third. He vaulted over the tilted kitchen chair, hit the mudroom in 3 strides, and yanked open the side cabinet where he kept the flare kit, a pry bar, and winter chains. The dog barked again from below, once, hard and urgent, followed by another pounding strike on the outside storm hatch. They were splitting pressure now, one team tearing the house open, another trying to get into the cellar from the ravine side. Ronan jammed the pry bar under the side window frame and forced it wide just enough to throw one flare out into the snow near the truck. It hit, sparked, and erupted in savage red light. The sudden glow washed the trees, the porch, and the men outside in blood-colored fire. One of them cursed and turned his face away. Another, the one by the chain, froze for half a second with his outline exposed against the truck grill. That was enough. Ronan fired once through the broken side gap, not to kill, but to make distance expensive. The man dropped behind the wheel well, and the chain pull stopped instantly. Ronan used the breath he had bought to rip open the pantry hatch and shout down, "Evelyn, up now!" The dog came first, launching from the dark like a black and tan bolt, snow and cellar dust on her coat, teeth bare, ears pinned. Evelyn climbed behind her with painful slowness, one hand clawing at the floorboards, the other clutching the blanket around herself. Ronan caught her under the arm and dragged her clear as another impact slammed the outside bulkhead. "Can you move?" he asked. "If I have to," she said, and this time there was more steel than weakness in it. "Good," Ronan replied. "You do." He did not go for the front door. They expected that. He shoved Evelyn toward the mudroom, kicked open the narrow side exit that led to the woodshed path, and sent the dog out first. She vanished into blowing snow without hesitation, then reappeared 10 feet away, turning back, waiting. Not fleeing, guiding, Ronan pulled Evelyn into the storm and slammed the side door behind them. The cold struck like a hammer. Snow came sideways now, thick enough to hide shapes at 20 feet and thin enough to betray movement at 10. Perfect conditions for bad decisions. Ronan made none. He kept low, one hand on Evelyn's elbow, the pistol tucked close against his ribs, and moved them behind the woodshed instead of downhill toward the road. A man shouted near the porch as they discovered the cabin no longer held its center. Another answered from the ravine side. Confusion spread fast in weather like this, and Ronan fed it. He circled them around the rear of the shed, cut across his own packed path to the generator alcove, then doubled back toward the truck from the blind side of the drift wall. The German shepherd reappeared at his knee twice, each time vanishing again after checking ahead. She moved like she knew flanking angles. She moved like she had done this before. They reached the truck just as one of the men rounded the front of the cabin and saw the open side path. "There!" he shouted. Ronan shoved Evelyn into the passenger seat, and the dog leaped in after her before the blankets had even settled. Ronan slid behind the wheel, twisted the ignition, and blessed the fact that he never shut the engine completely off in deep storm conditions. It caught at once. He threw the truck into reverse and backed blind in a hard arc that sent snow exploding from the rear tires. A dark figure lunged from the red flare glow toward the driver's side, arm extended, and the dog hit the glass with such force that the man recoiled instinctively. Ronan corrected, slammed into drive, and sent the truck off the porch line, not toward the main track, but straight through the open gap between the woodshed and the split-rail fence. Wood cracked beneath the bumper. Snow surged over the hood. The truck bucked, found traction, and burst onto the upper service path like an animal breaking a trap. Behind them, voices rose, sharp and angry now, stripped of all false politeness. Ronan did not look back until the cabin vanished behind the weather. Then he checked the mirror once. The red flare still burned near the truck ruts they had abandoned. 2 men were already running toward another vehicle, hidden deeper among the trees. So they had come prepared to stay mobile. Of course, they had. Evelyn was breathing harder now, each inhale a shallow hitch. Ronan turned the heater vents lower and kept the speed just short of reckless. The road was nearly gone under fresh accumulation, but he knew the ridge better than any GPS would. Pine shadows leaned over the track. Wind gusts shoved the truck sideways without warning. Ice hid under powder in narrow, polished bands. Every 100 yards demanded a choice: speed or control, distance or traction, hope or skill. He chose skill and hated how slow it felt. Beside him, Evelyn pressed one trembling hand to the dog's neck. The shepherd stood with her front paws braced on the seat again, staring through the rear window into white darkness. She had still not rested. She had still not eaten. Her entire body remained pointed backward toward the men they had just escaped, as if escape itself were only an interruption. "Tell me what they want," Ronan said. Evelyn closed her eyes for one breath, opened them again, and answered without wasting strength on denial. "Her." Ronan kept both hands on the wheel. "Who are they?" "The kind of people who raise obedience until it becomes fear," she said. "The kind who make a dog useful by breaking everything else first." The shepherd's ears twitched at the sound of Evelyn's voice, but she did not look away from the rear glass. Ronan took the next bend tighter, tires spitting slush against the ravine side. "And you?" Evelyn swallowed. "I cleaned cages, logged shipments. Told myself I never touched the worst part, so I wasn't part of it." Her mouth pulled thin with pain, maybe memory, maybe both. That lie lasted years. Ronan said nothing. There was no room for moral accounting at 40 miles an hour on mountain ice. She kept going anyway, words scraped out by urgency rather than confession. They trained dogs for private compounds, off-book teams, men who wanted loyalty without witnesses. Some were sold, some were rented. The smart ones didn't last because they kept too much of themselves. This one, she touched the shepherd again, very lightly. She learned too fast, wrong kind of fast. She stopped following commands from men who hurt the weak. They called her unstable. They were going to dispose of her. Ronan's eyes narrowed on the road ahead. "And you took her." "I opened one gate," Evelyn whispered. "That was all. One gate and one bad map. I thought distance would be enough." "It wasn't." "No," she said. "They don't lose assets. They don't forgive interference. And they never stop at one retrieval team. If they've shown themselves this openly, there's another vehicle somewhere ahead or another road already being closed." That changed the geometry at once. Not chase, net. Ronan checked the fuel gauge, then the storm clock in his head. County plows would not touch the forest cut for hours. The main highway was safer in theory, but easier to watch. The old logging descent was rougher, narrower, and half washed out from the autumn freeze, but it exited farther south near the ranger maintenance barn. Better chance of reaching radio range. Worse chance of rolling into the ravine and dying before sunrise. He took the logging descent. The truck jolted as soon as the tires left the more stable ridge track. Evelyn grabbed the dash. The dog spread her stance and absorbed the impact without losing balance. Snow here lay deeper between the trees, and fallen branches forced Ronan to snake the truck downhill with inches to spare. A signpost, half buried and twisted, flashed past the headlights. Then another detail hit him. No animal tracks crossed the road. No deer, no fox, nothing. The whole slope had gone still, not natural. Engine noise carried differently when another machine was nearby. Ronan killed the high beams for a second and saw it in the mirror. Not lights, but shape. A shadow gliding low and steady through the storm far behind them, where the road bent. No headlights. No marker lamps. Just the darker geometry of a vehicle using their tailless silhouette to follow. The dog saw it in the same instant and let out one low growl, deeper than before. As if recognizing not just danger, but method. Evelyn turned with effort, looked through the back glass, and whatever color remained in her face drained away. "That's them," she whispered. Ronan leaned forward, eyes hard on the narrowing logging road, while the black shape behind them held its distance in total darkness, patient and precise, following without lights because it no longer needed them. The shadow in the mirror closed distance without ever turning on its lights. Ronan felt it more than saw it. A pressure at his back that matched the rhythm of the truck's descent. Matching speed, matching hesitation, never overcommitting, never falling away. He tightened his grip on the wheel and pushed the truck harder down the logging cut. Snow exploding from under the tires as the narrow path twisted between trees that looked too close and too willing to end everything in one bad turn. The engine growled, the suspension took the punishment in sharp jolts, and then the front end dipped into a drift that had no bottom. The truck lurched, stalled forward momentum, and buried itself up to the axle in a sudden choking wall of snow. Ronan did not swear. He shifted to reverse, feathered the throttle, rocked once, twice, but the rear tires spun uselessly, carving deeper grooves into nothing. The shadow behind them slowed as well, not rushing, not afraid of losing them now. That was enough. Ronan killed the engine, turned to Evelyn, and said, "Out. Now." The dog was already moving, claws scraping as she jumped down into the storm before the passenger door was fully open. Cold rushed in again, brutal and immediate. Ronan hauled Evelyn out with one arm and dragged her clear of the truck, forcing her weight onto her feet even as she faltered. "You walk," he said. "You stop, you die." She nodded once, weak but understanding. The dog circled them once, then pushed forward into the trees without looking back. Not fleeing, leading, Ronan grabbed the emergency pack from behind the seat, slung it over his shoulder, and slammed the door shut on the useless vehicle. He did not waste time trying to free it. The road was gone. They were on foot now. The storm swallowed the truck within seconds as if it had never been there. Ronan set a pace that hurt but did not break, one hand gripping Evelyn's arm, the other holding the pistol low and ready. Snow climbed to mid-calf with each step, sucking at boots, stealing balance, turning every movement into effort. The dog stayed 10 yards ahead, pausing only to make sure they followed, then pushing forward again with relentless purpose. Behind them, the sound came back, an engine cutting, a door slamming, boots hitting snow. They had abandoned their vehicle too. That meant they expected to catch up on foot. That meant they knew this terrain, or they trusted something else to guide them. Ronan angled off the broken road and deeper into the forest where the trees thickened and the ground rose uneven beneath the snowpack. No straight lines, no easy tracking. Every turn he took cut across his own path, doubling back for a few steps before breaking away again, forcing any follower to slow, to read, to commit. Evelyn stumbled once, twice, then again harder, nearly going down. Ronan caught her before she could sink into the drift. "Stay with me," he said, voice low and sharp. "You don't get to stop." She forced air into her lungs and answered with effort. "I'm trying." The dog stopped ahead, waited, then moved again, always forward. Always just far enough to pull them onward. Evelyn's voice came again, thinner now but steadier than before. "They'll spread out." Ronan did not slow. "I know." "They don't chase in a line," she continued. "They hunt in arcs. One pushes, one cuts, one waits." Ronan adjusted instantly, shifting direction again, angling toward a ridgeline where wind would strip the snow thinner and make tracks harder to read. "How many?" he asked. "Minimum 4, she said, "sometimes more." Ronan's jaw tightened. He had seen at least 3. That meant another was out there, somewhere ahead or already moving to intercept. The forest closed tighter as they climbed, branches heavy with snow bending low enough to force them into a crouch at times. The wind changed direction here, funneling between trunks in sharp bursts that carried sound strangely. A branch snapped somewhere to their right. Not wind, too clean. Ronan stopped instantly, pulling Evelyn down behind a fallen log, both of them sinking into the drift. The dog did not bark. She froze where she stood, body rigid, ears locked on the same direction. Ronan listened. Nothing for 2 seconds. 3. Then the faintest compression of snow. Step, pause, step. Not rushing, not searching blindly, tracking close. Ronan shifted his grip on the pistol and leaned just enough to see between branches. A figure moved through the trees, low, controlled, following the line Ronan had cut only moments before. Too close, too fast. He raised the weapon, steadied his breathing, then did not fire. The man was not alone. Another shadow passed farther back, wider arc, exactly as Evelyn had said. Ronan lowered the pistol and made the harder choice. Move now or be pinned. He tapped Evelyn's shoulder once. Up. They rose together, silent, and cut left hard through a thicker cluster of brush, branches snapping against their coats as they forced through. The dog surged forward again, accelerating. No hesitation now. The man behind them shouted something short and sharp. The response came from the other direction almost immediately. They were closing the net. Ronan pushed Evelyn faster, ignoring the way her steps faltered, ignoring the burn in his own legs. The terrain shifted underfoot, rising sharply before dropping away into a shallow ravine hidden under snow. He saw it a half-second before stepping into empty space and yanked Evelyn back just in time. They slid down the slope together anyway, boots losing purchase, bodies dropping hard into the drift below. The impact drove air from Evelyn's lungs in a broken gasp. Ronan rolled, came up on one knee, scanning, weapon up. No immediate contact. But the shout behind them grew louder. They had seen the slide. Ronan grabbed Evelyn again and hauled her forward along the base of the ravine where the snow lay deeper, but the wind cut cleaner. The dog moved ahead, then suddenly stopped. Not a pause. A stop total. She turned slowly, facing back toward Ronan, toward the direction they had come, her body lowering slightly, weight shifting forward. Not fear. Readiness. Ronan felt the change instantly. He pulled Evelyn to a halt beside him, breath controlled, mind aligning. The dog did not move again. She held her ground in the center of the narrow ravine, eyes fixed on the dark line between trees where their pursuers would appear. Evelyn's voice came in a whisper. "What is she doing?" Ronan answered without taking his eyes off the same line. "Not running." The sound of boots on snow came again, closer now, more than one set, spreading, tightening. The dog's growl rose low and steady, not loud, not frantic. Something deeper, something final. Ronan adjusted his stance, shifting his weight, bringing the pistol up in a controlled line. The forest around them seemed to pull inward, sound narrowing, space compressing. Every movement suddenly measured against the next. The dog took one step forward, then another, placing herself between Ronan and the approaching shadows. She did not look back this time. She did not wait. She had made a decision. And for the first time since the storm began, Ronan understood that whatever came next, they were no longer trying to escape it. They were about to meet it head-on. The first shot cracked through the ravine before the men fully showed themselves. It wasn't aimed to kill. It snapped into the tree trunk inches from Ronan's shoulder, splintering bark and sending wood shards across his face. A warning, a range test. Ronan didn't flinch. He dropped low, dragged Evelyn behind a jagged outcrop of frozen rock, and shoved her down into the deepest pocket of snow he could find. "Stay behind me," he said. No wasted words, no reassurance. The German shepherd didn't retreat. She stepped forward into the narrow center of the ravine, placing herself in open ground where the line of approach narrowed between two banks of snow and stone. A choke point. She had chosen it, not him. Ronan saw the geometry at once and moved to match it. He took position just behind her left flank, half kneeling, weapon steady, using the rock face for partial cover while leaving just enough angle to engage anything entering the corridor. Snow fell harder now, not drifting, but dropping in thick vertical sheets, reducing visibility to 10 yards at best. Sound compressed. Every step echoed, every breath carried. Then they came. One figure first, low and controlled, rifle raised but not firing. Another, wider to the right, trying to gain angle but slowed by the uneven ground. A third stayed back in shadow, holding distance. Exactly as Evelyn had described. Push, cut, wait. Ronan He tracked the lead man's movement, adjusting for the wind, the snow, the distortion of depth in whiteout conditions. He did not fire, not yet. The man stopped just outside the choke, boots planted, weapon steady but not pointed directly at Ronan. Confidence. He spoke without raising his voice. "You've done enough." The calm tone again. The same one from the cabin. Ronan did not answer. The German shepherd's growl deepened, vibrating through the frozen air like something ancient and unbroken. The second man shifted position, trying to flank through the higher bank. Ronan moved first. One shot, controlled, precise. The man dropped instantly, not dead, but out of position, forced back into the snow with a sharp cry that cut off any illusion of control. The first man didn't react with panic. He adjusted. Slightly, that was worse. "You're not the problem," he said, still calm. "You never were." Ronan's eyes narrowed. The dog didn't move. The man's gaze slid past Ronan, settled on the German shepherd, and held. Not threat, not fear. Recognition. Ronan felt the shift click into place with brutal clarity. Not Evelyn. Not him. Her. Always her. The third man in the shadows moved forward now, slower, careful, watching the dog more than the gun in Ronan's hand. The pressure changed. It wasn't about breaking through anymore. It was about containment. Surround, isolate, extract. Ronan adjusted his stance, stepping half a foot forward, deliberately placing himself between the dog and the men. The shepherd flicked one ear back at him but did not retreat. She understood the line. The wind shifted. carrying the scent of them forward. Sweat under cold gear. Metal oil. Controlled breathing. Trained men. The first man lowered his weapon a fraction, not enough to be safe, just enough to signal something else. Negotiation. "You don't want this to go further," he said. Ronan answered without looking away. "Then leave." A pause. The second man was pulling himself back up now, slower, injured, but not finished. The third had closed distance to within 15 yards, still outside Ronan's immediate kill zone, still careful. The first man exhaled once, as if confirming something internally. "She doesn't belong to you," he said. Ronan's voice stayed flat. "She's not yours either." The man's expression didn't change. "She was built for a purpose," he replied. "And she failed." The dog's growl shifted, sharper now, more focused. Ronan felt it through his boots, not fear, not anger. Recognition of the voice. The man took one step forward into the choke. Slow. Controlled. Testing the boundary. Ronan didn't fire. He let him step. Let him commit. The moment stretched, tight as wire. Snow fell. Wind cut. Breath slowed. The second man finished regaining his feet behind, weapon coming back up. The third shifted slightly left, trying to widen the angle again. They were resetting. Ronan made the decision before the pattern could complete. He fired twice in quick succession, not at the same target. First shot drove the third man back into cover. Second clipped the rifle of the one in front, knocking it offline just as he began to raise it. The sound shattered the fragile balance. The ravine filled with motion. The injured man lunged for a better position. The third fired blindly once, the round slamming into the rock above Ronan's head. Snow cascaded down in a choking burst. The dog moved then. Not back. Forward. 2 steps, fast, precise, cutting the distance to the edge of the choke before stopping again, teeth bared, stance low and lethal. Not attacking. Holding. Drawing their attention. Ronan saw the intent instantly. She was forcing them to focus on her, to expose themselves, to make them forget him for half a second. It worked. All 3 men shifted their gaze toward her at once. Ronan used that fraction. He repositioned 2 steps to the right, gaining a cleaner angle down the narrow corridor, forcing any advance to come through him or not at all. The first man recovered faster than the others. He stepped back, raised one hand slightly, not in surrender, in control. The others stopped moving. The tension snapped back into place, tighter now, more dangerous. The man looked directly at Ronan. "You're making a mistake," he said. Ronan didn't respond. The dog's growl filled the silence. Then, from somewhere deeper in the trees beyond the ravine, another sound came. An engine. Low, heavy. Not the vehicle they had abandoned. Another one. Reinforcement or containment. The net tightening. The man heard it too. His expression didn't change, but his timing did. This was the end of patience. He lowered his weapon completely now, deliberate, controlled, as if what came next didn't require it. His voice carried through the storm, calm, certain, final. "Give her to us, and you can walk away." The words hung in the frozen air, heavier than any shot. Ronan did not answer the offer. He stepped out from behind the rock instead, one measured pace into the open throat of the ravine, placing his body squarely between the men and the German shepherd. Snow hit his face in hard, dry bursts, melting at the edges of his lashes, while the wind ran low through the cut like a blade being drawn across stone. He kept the pistol down by his thigh, not lowered in surrender, not raised in panic. Just there, controlled, visible, certain. Behind him, the dog held her ground with her head low and shoulders set, Every line of her body pointed forward. Evelyn stayed hidden behind the rock shelf where he had placed her, but he could hear her breathing now, ragged, faster, not from cold alone. The engine deeper in the trees grew louder for 3 seconds, then cut. Whoever else had arrived had stopped short and was waiting. Good. That meant uncertainty. Ronan's eyes never left the man in front. "No," he said. The word landed flat, without anger, without theater. The man seemed almost disappointed by how little drama it contained. He stood with his weapon low now, but not harmless. A broad-shouldered figure in a dark, weatherproof parka, beard frosted white at the edges, pale eyes fixed on Ronan with the professional patience of someone used to pressure working eventually. To his right, the second man had settled into a half-kneel behind snow-covered brush, rifle tucked close, still nursing the pain Ronan had given him earlier, but functional enough to matter. The third had shifted wider out of sight, keeping an angle Ronan could feel, but not see. 3 visible problems, 1 invisible, and a dog that all of them valued more than the human beings around her. "You are outnumbered," the lead man said. Ronan shrugged once, almost lazily. "Then count better." The answer bought half a second of silence and changed the air. It was not bravado, it was a signal. The lead man heard it for what it was. So did the others. Ronan did not intend to bluff, plead, or bargain himself into a safer position. He intended to hold this line until something broke. The dog gave one short, hard exhale through her nose, as if agreeing. The second man adjusted first, edging his rifle higher. Ronan tracked him without moving his head. "You shoot," he said, still speaking only to the man in front, "and she'll turn on whichever one of you commits first." The lead man's expression barely shifted, but something in it cooled. "She won't," he said, "not if she remembers the sequence." Ronan heard the words, and the dog heard them too. Her ears twitched once, backward, then forward again. Sequence. Not name, not command, not recall word. Sequence. Conditioning language. The kind used by handlers who treated intelligence like a lock that could be opened with repetition and pain. The lead man saw that Ronan understood. "She's not protecting you because she chose you," he continued. "She's reacting to containment pressure, positioning, proximity, stress mapping." Ronan answered by taking one more step forward, narrowing the space between himself and the choke point until any rush would bring them inside bad distance. "Funny," he said. "Looks like choice from here." The second man lost patience first. He shifted his knees under him, preparing to drive up and left for angle. Ronan saw the weight transfer before the motion completed. He snapped the pistol up and fired once into the snow 6 inches from the man's hand. Ice and powder exploded into his face. The man recoiled hard, rifle jerking back out of line. Not a hit, a correction, a reminder. The lead man did not flinch. "You can shoot around us all night," he said. "But you can't carry the woman, protect yourself, and hold the dog when the weather closes again." He was right about the math, wrong about the will. Ronan glanced only once toward the rock where Evelyn was hidden. "You still with me?" "Enough," she called back, voice thin but steady. The lead man's gaze flicked toward the sound, then returned to Ronan. "She told you just enough to make herself useful," he said. "She won't tell you the rest." Evelyn answered before Ronan could. "Because the rest is filth." The wind pushed her words ragged across the ravine, but they landed. "Tell him what you did to the ones that failed recall." The lead man did not respond. The silence after the accusation was not denial. It was irritation. The second man muttered something under his breath. The hidden third shifted position again, and the dog instantly rotated half a step to track it, not taking her eyes off the front, but redistributing her weight with eerie precision. She knew they were splitting. She had been hunted by this pattern before. Ronan's mind moved fast, hard, clean. If they held here, more men could arrive. If he moved, he exposed Evelyn. If he forced a rush, someone would die in the ravine and the dog might break toward whichever voice from her past cut deepest. He needed them uncertain. Needed them to doubt timing, backup, terrain, and him. He chose pressure over patience. You've got one injured shooter, one hidden flank that hasn't committed, and whoever just rolled in out there killed his engine because he doesn't like your odds. The lead man said nothing. Ronan pressed. That means you expected retrieval, not resistance. Means you thought an old woman and a storm would soften the target. Means you read me wrong. A pause, then, from the ridge above, a new sound cut through the weather. A cracking pop followed by a groan of shifting weight. Ronan looked up just long enough to see the top layer of snow along the ravine lip begin to shear loose where gunfire and movement had undercut it. Not a full avalanche. Worse in its own way. A heavy slab release on the unstable bank to the right, exactly where the hidden third man had been widening his angle. "Move!" someone shouted from the darkness. Too late. The bank gave way in a roaring slide of snow, ice chunks, and broken branches that thundered down into the ravine wall in a choking white collapse. The hidden man screamed once and disappeared under it. The second man flung himself backward, losing his rifle into the surge. The lead man stumbled sideways, boots skidding, one hand shooting out to brace against the rock. Ronan moved at once, not toward them, but back toward Evelyn, dragging her deeper behind cover as the edge of the slide burst across the choke point and slammed into the dog's forelegs. She held for one brutal second, then vanished waist-deep into the rolling snow. "No!" Evelyn's voice tore through the ravine. The slide stopped almost as quickly as it had begun, settling into grinding silence and powder. Ronan lunged forward, holstered the pistol without thinking, and plunged both arms into the fresh-packed mass where he had last seen the shepherd. Cold bit like acid through his gloves. Snow collapsed inward around his elbows, then fur. He caught her harnessless shoulders and heaved. The dog came free with a spray of white, coughing, twisting, alive. The moment her paws touched ground again, she snapped around and planted herself in front of him as if nothing had happened. Breathing hard, eyes fixed ahead, still on task. Across the ravine, the lead man had regained his footing. Snow coated his parka and beard now, stripping away the last of his clean control. He looked from Ronan to the dog to the half-buried stretch where his hidden man had gone under, and for the first time, calculation gave way to something sharper. Not fear, revision. He lifted one gloved hand, signaling the second man back. The injured shooter hesitated. "Sir, back," the lead man said. Flat, final. The second man obeyed, scrambling for purchase as he retreated. The lead man kept his eyes on Ronan the entire time. "This isn't finished," he said. Ronan slid the pistol free again and stood. The dog pressed close to his leg now, her chest heaving. "I know." Another beat passed. The wind moved between them, carrying powder and the metallic scent of disturbed snow. Then the lead man began to step away, slow and deliberate, refusing to look like a man retreating even while doing exactly that. The injured shooter followed. No one came for the buried flank. No one tried one last shot. No one rushed. They left because the equation had changed. Because weather, terrain, and resistance had combined into a cost they had not planned to pay tonight. Ronan watched them until the storm swallowed their outlines completely. Only then did he turn, crouch beside Evelyn, and feel the tremor in his own hands that came not from fear, but from the body's delayed argument with survival. He shut it down at once. The dog stood over both of them, staring into the dark where the men had vanished, not victorious, not relieved, only alert. As if she understood what Ronan did now. They had not withdrawn because they were beaten. They had withdrawn because they finally understood who was standing in front of them. The storm swallowed the last outline of the men, but Ronan did not give the darkness the courtesy of trust. He stayed crouched beside Evelyn for 3 controlled breaths, pistol still up, eyes fixed on the corridor where the retreat had happened, waiting for the oldest trick in bad weather, the false withdrawal. The pause that pulled relief out of a body just long enough for the second strike to land. Nothing moved. Snow crossed the ravine in hard silver ribbons, hissing over the fresh slide. The buried flank man did not surface. The injured shooter and his leader were gone, or wanted him to think they were. The dog stood rigid at Ronan's side, chest heaving, forelegs dusted white, ears forward and sharp as spear points. She gave no sign of settling. That was enough. "We move," Ronan said. He holstered the pistol, slung the emergency pack tighter across his back, and hauled Evelyn upright before her body could begin arguing with itself again. She cried out once, very softly, then swallowed it and leaned into him with the grim obedience of someone too cold and too tired to waste pain on display. The dog took point without being told. Not racing now, not leading them deeper into the trees, but circling once, as if testing the air before choosing a route back toward the upper ridge. Ronan noticed that too. She did not choose the shortest path. She chose the one with the cleanest sightlines and the narrowest approaches. He followed. The climb out of the ravine was ugly. Snow had packed over broken rock and loose roots, turning every step into a wager. Twice, Ronan had to push Evelyn from below while dragging her upward by the blanket bunched around her shoulders. Once the dog returned, planted herself above Evelyn, and let the woman grab a fistful of thick fur at the scruff to gain 1 more foot of height. No whining, no hesitation, just work. By the time they reached the ridgeline, Ronan's thighs burned and Evelyn's breath had turned thin and sharp again. The storm, which had hidden them when they needed cover, now stole their heat with a vindictive patience. Ronan checked the tree breaks below. No lights, no movement. But the logging road where the truck had died was visible in fragments through the pines, and even at this distance he could see 2 things clearly enough. His vehicle remained half buried where it had stalled, and a second shape now sat farther downslope among the trees, dark and angled. The hunter's unlit vehicle abandoned or parked for later. They had left it there on purpose or had no time to retrieve it. Either answer mattered. "Cabin?" Evelyn asked, her voice rough. Ronan studied the wind, the ridge, the fading tracks. For now. She gave one short nod and did not argue. That mattered too. The return route was slower than the escape had been. Everything had changed. The woods were no longer unknown. They were mapped now in pressure points, likely approaches, blind corners, choke lines, and escape failures. Ronan moved them through the trees with constant adjustments, never crossing open stretches unless the dog had already scanned them, never committing to his own old tracks if a fresh angle would do. Snow kept trying to erase the world. The world kept trying to answer with signs. 10 minutes into the climb, the dog halted so abruptly that Evelyn nearly walked into Ronan's arm. Ronan froze with her. Ahead, half hidden beneath a birch root, lay a black radio earpiece, small and modern, dusted with fresh powder but not buried. One of the men had dropped it during the retreat or left it while circling. Ronan crouched, studied the pattern around it, and did not touch. Tracks overlapped here, 2 sets, then one breaking uphill, one cutting west. The retreat had not been clean. They had split as they withdrew. Not everyone had gone the same direction. "They're still near us," Evelyn whispered. Ronan stood again. "I know." He took them east instead of straight north, adding distance to buy certainty. The cabin appeared at last as a shape rather than a place. A dark, slumped weight among the pines with the front porch partly torn and the red flare long dead, its smoke stain frozen black on the snow. Ronan stopped before the clearing and dropped to one knee, bringing Evelyn down with him behind a drifted stump. The dog crawled forward on her belly, not dramatic, not panicked, just efficient. She reached the edge of the clearing, held there, then looked back once. No bark, no alarm. Ronan read it as provisional, not safe. He moved. The cabin looked worse up close. The porch support had been yanked half loose, one stair splintered free, one window cracked from his earlier strike, and drag marks scarred the snow where the chain had bitten through. But the wall still stood, the stovepipe still breathed a faint thread of smoke into the storm. Structure held. He got Evelyn inside first. Heat met them in a tired wave that smelled of iron, wet wool, and old wood. The room looked like a place that had survived an argument with violence and was waiting to hear whether it had won. Ronan locked every door that still mattered, jammed the kitchen chair under the damaged frame, and set the lanterns low instead of bright. No silhouette, no easy target. The dog made a full circuit of the cabin. Front room, stove, pantry hatch, back hall, side door, front room again, only after that returning to Evelyn, who had collapsed onto the rug near the stove. Ronan stripped off her frozen outer layers, wrapped her in dry blankets, and brought her warmed water in careful increments. Color returned slowly and unwillingly to her face. Not enough, but better. He checked her feet again, checked her pulse again, checked the dog's shoulder wound properly for the first time under clean light. The scrape was deeper than he had thought, a glancing cut torn open by cold and effort. The shepherd stood still while he cleaned it, though every few seconds her head snapped toward the windows as if an invisible string kept tugging her back to the dark outside. She still would not eat. Ronan put down food anyway. She ignored it. He looked at the untouched bowl, then at the animal standing guard with bloody meltwater dripping from her fur onto his floorboards, and something inside him shifted, not softening, not sentiment, something harder and stranger. All night he had acted like he was dragging the weak through danger, but danger had not begun with him, and it had not been survived by him alone. The woman had chosen to run with the dog everyone else had written off. The dog had chosen every line, every stop, every turn, every warning. Ronan had not rescued a story. He had been pulled into one that was already in motion, and for the first time in years that fact did not irritate him. It clarified him. He moved faster after that. He reinforced the front entry with a beam from the woodpile, shifted the table to block the cracked kitchen window, and finally took the old county radio from the shelf above the sink where he hadn't used it in months. Static fought him at first, then fragments of signal bled through as the storm eased half a degree. He gave location, partial distress, damaged property, armed pursuers. One hypothermic female, one hostile, trained dog retrieval team. The dispatcher's reply came broken but real. Units were grounded from the upper pass until dawn, unless life threat became immediate. That meant help existed in principle and nowhere in reach. Dawn, Ronan muttered. Evelyn heard him. They won't wait for daylight, she said. I know. They'll test the edges first, quietly. They hate witnesses, but they hate losing more. Ronan checked the ammunition he had left. Not much, but enough if range stayed close. The dog had returned to the front room, and now stood beside the ruined door, staring at the lower seam where snow had started to drift inward. Her body had changed. The frantic edge was gone. In its place sat a colder readiness, the patience of something that had measured an opponent and found the answer unsatisfying. Ronan killed one more lamp, letting the stove and lantern cast only a low amber wash across the room. Minutes passed, then an hour, maybe less. The storm outside weakened just enough for sound to travel better. Wood ticked as the cabin cooled at the edges. Evelyn drifted in and out, never fully asleep. Ronan stayed in the chair angled toward the front room, pistol on his thigh, boots planted, listening. The dog remained standing. Finally, close to midnight, she eased herself down onto the rug by the door. It was the first time he had seen her truly lower her body since the bridge, but even then, she did not rest like a safe animal. Her head stayed up. Her ears stayed erect. Her eyes stayed on the dark seam beneath the entry. Ronan followed her line of sight. At first, he saw nothing. Then the faintest shadow crossed the frosted lower pane of the door and moved on. A moment later came the sound. Slow footsteps in fresh snow, one set, then another, deliberate and controlled, circling the cabin at a distance. Ronan rose without a word. The dog did not bark. She only stood again, every line of her body tightening toward the door. Outside, new footprints pressed themselves into the whitening night, sharp-edged and unhurried. They had come back smarter,